Okay, and this is the reason why I believe that we go through what we go through. We go through the hardships, we go through the trials and tribulations, we feel all the pain so that we can understand it enough to know that in those moments, what we need the most is love and grace. Okay, so when we see other people drowning, when other people are going through trials and tribulations, we get to be that space of love and grace for them. Everything's brewing right now, conspiring to work out for you. Honestly, how easy is it to judge other people, right? How easy is it to chime into a conversation where we're pointing out all the flaws of that person over here or this person over there? Oh, how could they? Why would they? Like, what is wrong with them? What the hell is going on here? Why the fuck would they do that? Oh my gosh, that's so weird. That's so disgusting. Like, oh, can you believe it? Can you believe that they just did this? Can you believe, like, yeah, yeah. And then, like, we chime in and we're like, yeah, oh my gosh, what? Oh my God. And so when we were chiming in, I just want to remind y'all that we are a part of the motherfucking problem. Okay. And I'm not talking about anybody else. I just want to talk about myself. I want to talk about how, yeah, I have the tendency to judge people. Okay. And with all the self work that I've done and all of that, I still fall into the trap of like, judging other people and like especially if it's so absurd and they're so annoying and they're like deliberately trying to hurt other people or they're deliberately being so selfish and unloving and unsupportive and fake as shit, whatever you name it. We think that when people meet certain criterias that make them like unbelievable, that we have the right to judge them, that we have the right to say something. And the fact that we're going around trying to get other people involved in judging other people is because we need that validation. Hey, I don't like this person. This person did this. Can I tell you about it? And tell me what you think. And we're almost expecting other people to be like, oh my gosh, like fuck that person. Like, what the fuck? Right? When like we get to remember that when we judge other people, it's just a reflection of how bad we judge ourselves. Okay, so it's just a reflection of how much we still have hate for ourselves. Because if not, there really is no need to judge other people, like point blank, period. Point blank, period. And the reason why I feel called to talk about this is because within my own personal life, within the last 2 weeks or so, I have caught myself judging three separate people. And these three people are very close and dear to me, very close and dear. And I love them so much. And you hear about how people are the meanest to those who love them the most. Maybe I can apply that to my life and in this situation. Um, but the first person is my husband, second person is my mom, and this third person I'm almost afraid to like say something. But this person is an extended family member, and to my husband, I was just, getting onto him about how I feel like he's not on the right timeline and he's not doing things like quick enough. And I was just putting him down like a shitload, right? And I was basing it on the premise that I'm willing to face my fears and I'm willing to do what it takes and go through ridicule and go through judgment and rejection, also that I can live my dream life and to grow and to become the best version of me. And meanwhile, like, I'm trying to put myself on this pedestal and pretty much I was saying, like, why can't you be like me? Right. And I realized afterwards that that's just so toxic. And he was just saying, for someone who's done a lot of work on herself, I wouldn't think that she would judge, me like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to look at this. And I hope you guys know that I'm being completely vulnerable right now because this is an issue and it gets to be addressed. And I feel like if other people out there are doing the same thing, then perhaps you'll feel more inspired to take a look at yourself and to see where, like you're harming yourself or other people, and then somehow find the courage to do something about it. My husband kept asking me, like, where is it coming from? Like, what is going on? And I'm like, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is, I guess, hurt people. But I wasn't really able to piece everything together until the next two events happened. But for this extended family member, I feel like she makes poor choices, and it's all a reflection of, um, not loving and honoring herself, which I'm not bashing her for that. I just, if anything, I'm choosing to give her more grace than anything because truthfully, not loving yourself is the reason why people choose to tolerate toxicity. And not only do they get themselves tangled up in toxicity, but, they intentionally slash unintentionally drag in their loved ones into the bullshit as well. And I myself have done this many, many times for many, many, many years. And I just have to say thank you to my mom because, and my dad and my family, because they always stuck by me and allowed me to figure it out by myself. Whereas now, like with me being mixed with this person and her drama, I feel stressed and I feel like judging her and I feel like putting her down. And again, I'm putting myself on a pedestal. Like, oh, I went through all this, but I chose to be different. How come you're going through all this and you're choosing to stay in shit, right? And it's like, wait, Christine, everyone operates on their own timeline and everybody gets to figure it out their own way, okay? And I get to establish boundaries if I don't want to be a part of toxicity, to where it's like ruining my mood and my day. I get to establish boundaries and I also get to give her grace, right? I get to give these people grace and I don't get to say, oh, well, I made it out. I made it out through the weeds. How come you're still stuck in it? Like you're doing something wrong. And then just like further pushing them down more. That is not being supportive and that's not being loving. And ultimately, that is not what I want to stand for. So that was incident number two. And incident number three occurred pretty recently when I was talking to my mom and she was in a darker space. And in the midst of trying to support her and to hold space for her so that she can just vent, she said something that I disagreed with. And I went off on her by telling her, like, no, I don't agree with that. Not realizing that there's a time and place for everything. And I didn't have to do all that. And I just felt like I used to operate like her and I used to agree with what she has to say, but I made the choice to no longer believe in those things. And because I want to operate from a place of being completely vulnerable and completely transparent, right? Because that's how we form connections. Because humans are social creatures and the quality of our lives really depend on the quality of our relationships. And so, as I'm actively working on letting go of my defense mechanisms and allowing people that I choose, okay, like I choose very carefully who I allow in my space. um but yeah, so these people that I choose very carefully, I want to be able to let them into my space so that I can be fully supported and so that I can fully support them and love them through life. And so, I went off on her. And again, it's the same thing that I noticed. I was putting myself on a pedestal, like, oh my gosh, I change. And mom, why can't you change? And I was like, oh my gosh, I had this big epiphany. And I told my husband, I think that although I've changed a lot in my life and the results are clear, they're evident, I can't argue with them. My life has transformed for the better in so many ways. However, I've hated myself, right, enough to change a lot of aspects of my life. And I've come to realize that that is not it either, because if I'm still harboring this hate for myself, right? Hate for the way that I used to be, hate for the way that I used to operate, hate for all the poor choices that I've made, like hate for myself and how I wasn't doing it right. if I'm harboring all this hate for myself, it stays. And because it stays, when I look at other people and I see that they're making the same mistakes that I have made, instead of giving them grace and loving them and being patient with them, because that was what I wanted when I was making mistakes and poor choices. The thing that I needed the most was for people to see me for who I am beyond my mistakes, to see that I just want love and validation, right? I'm just human. I just want to be accepted and understood, and for them to be patient with me, and if anything, find a way to help support me by not judging me. You know what I'm saying? And so, knowing that that was all I wanted, I get to now being in this space where I get to give that to other people. I get to be understanding. I get to be patient with them. I get to love them. I get to support them. I get to hold space for them. I get to be everything that I wanted in someone else when I was drowning. Okay. So I realized that, I hated the fact that I was drowning, and I hated it enough that I swam to shore with hate. And so anyone who's like drowning, of course, I'm going to harbor the same hate for them. And then I'll start judging them. And so I've realized this is wrong. And I've also realized that, as humans, it's very natural for us to do this, to hate our way into changing ourselves. But it doesn't have to be it. It doesn't have to be it, because when we love ourselves enough to change, right? That means we're realizing that we deserve so much more. Then it's that much easier to give grace to other people when we see them drowning, because we understand what it feels like to drown, and we understand exactly what it is that we needed in that moment, so that we can recreate it and be that caretaker for the person, the caretaker that we've always wanted in our lives, right? We get to be that caretaker now. Okay, and this is the reason why I believe that we go through what we go through. We go through the hardships, we go through the trials and tribulations, we feel all the pain, so that we can understand it enough to know that in those moments, what we need the most is love and grace. Okay. So when we see other people drowning, when other people are going through trials and tribulations, we get to be that space of love and grace for them as much as we needed it. Okay. But what happens when we hate ourselves into change is we end up bullying people. When we finally step into the power and we get to, then we make the mistake of making that choice to push them down. It's kind of like, oh, when I was down, I felt like other people pushed me, so I'm going to push other people down. Like, do you see how toxic that is? People don't deserve that. People don't deserve that. And it starts with us realizing that we sometimes play a role in making it worse for other people to try to float or to try to swim to shore. These are all like full circles. It's all full circles, and it always starts with us. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed episode 31. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, comment, share. Okay. I just really want to be vulnerable with you. I want to connect with you on a deeper level. I enjoy talking about the things that we all think about, yet sometimes we don't know how to put it into words, let alone, understanding what it's all about. But whatever the case is, at the end of the day, if these thoughts and feelings and beliefs are not serving us, we get to realize that we get to do something about it, and we get to become that best version of ourselves. And we don't point out our wrongs to beat ourselves up. We point out our wrongs so that we can change to become better. That's really what it's about. So thank you so much for tuning into episode 31.